our eyes for a moment. Take a breath. Most of the people you see walking down the street are living in a state of constant rehearsal. They are waking up and mentally rehearsing their problems, their limitations, and their past. They are waiting for something outside of them to change so they can feel something different inside of them. They want wealth, but they feel lack. They want love, but they feel unworthy. Here is the neurological truth. The universe does not give you what you ask for with your words. It reflects back to you who you are being in this very moment. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. When we sit down to truly examine the mechanics of the universe, we have to look past the physical world and into the realm of energy and frequency. Most people spend their entire lives trying to create a new reality by using their senses to manipulate the environment around them. They try to work harder, struggle more, manipulate circumstances to get what they want. But there is a fundamental law of physics that governs the way our lives unfold, and it is this: your life is a perfect mirror of your internal state of being. To understand this, you must understand the signature of your energy. We are constantly broadcasting information into a quantum field that is sensitive to our every movement, not just of our bodies, but of our consciousness. Think of your thoughts as the electrical charge you send out into that field. Every time you have a thought, you are sending a signal, a specific frequency into the vast web of infinite possibilities. However, your thoughts are only half of the equation. Your feelings a magnetic charge that draws the experience back to you. When you combine a clear, intentional thought with a heightened emotional state, you are literally changing the fabric of your reality. Problem for most of us is that we are in a state of total incoherence. We might have a thought that says we want to be healthy, wealthy, or free, but our body is feeling the emotion of illness, poverty, or entrapment. This creates a mixed signal. Trying to tune into a specific radio station while broadcasting on an entirely different frequency. The field doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you are being. If you are waking up every morning and immediately remembering your problems, you are starting your day in the past. Those problems are associated with specific people, places, and times, and they trigger familiar emotions like stress, fear, or frustration. The moment you feel those emotions, your body, which is the subconscious mind, believes it is back in that past experience. Since the body cannot distinguish between an actual external event and an emotion you are creating by thought alone, it begins to produce the exact same chemistry as if the event were happening right now. You are literally anchoring yourself to a reality you claim you want to change. When you exist in a state of lack, waiting for something outside of you to change so you can feel better, you are broadcasting a signature that says, I am not whole. You are telling the universe that you are lacking, and because the universe is a mirror, it must provide you with more lack to match your internal state. This is why so many people feel stuck. They are waiting for the wealth to feel abundant, success to feel powerful, or for the new relationship to feel loved. But that is the old model of cause and effect. The new model of reality is about causing an effect. You must learn to broadcast the signature of the future you want before it happens. You have to teach your body emotionally what it feels like to be the person who has already achieved those dreams. You have to move into a state of abundance while you are still in debt. You have to move into a state of gratitude while you are still facing challenges. When you can hold a vision of your future so clearly in your mind that you begin to feel the emotions of that future, your body begins to change. To believe is already in that new reality. This is when the magic happens. When you are in a state of pure, elevated emotion, your heart opens and your brain becomes more orderly and coherent. You begin to emit a powerful, unified electromagnetic field that reaches out into the quantum world. Instead of you having to go out and get what you want, you start to draw it to you. You become the magnet. You start to see synchronicities, coincidences, opportunities that you could never have predicted or forced through your own willpower. This is what it means to truly change your energy signature. You are no longer living as a victim of your circumstances, reacting to everything that happens to you. Instead, you are living as the creator of your life, intentionally choosing the frequency you want to embody. This process requires you to become conscious of your unconscious thoughts and feelings. You have to catch yourself when you are slipping back into the old personality that is defined by the past. Every time you redirect your focus back to the vision of your future and the feeling of that future, you are rewiring your nervous system. You are literally becoming a new person on a cellular level. And when you become that new person, the old reality can no longer exist for you. It must fall away to make room for the new life that matches your new energy. This is the ultimate law of attraction. You do not attract what you want, You attract what you are currently broadcasting into the field of infinite potential. To truly step into a new life, you must come to the realization that the hardest part about changing is not the actual process of growth, refusal to make the same choices you made the day before. Most of us wake up and step into a routine that is so deeply ingrained in our nervous system that we are essentially operating on autopilot. We get out of bed on the same side, we drink our coffee in the same mug, we drive to work using the same route, and we see the same people who trigger the same emotional reactions within us. This cycle creates a closed loop of biological and neurological patterns that reinforce a specific identity. Identity is what we call ourself, but in reality, it is simply a collection of memorized behaviors and emotional habits. When you decide to change, when you decide that you are no longer going to be the person who complains, person who feels sorry for themselves, or the person who lives in fear, you are essentially declaring war on your own biology. This is the moment you step into what I call the river of change, and it is the most uncomfortable place a human being can inhabit. Void between the old self and the new self. The reason this transition is so difficult is that your body has become the mind. For years, you have practiced certain emotional states. Perhaps it is the feeling of being overwhelmed or the feeling of unworthiness, and your body has become conditioned to those chemical signals. Your cells are literally addicted to the hormones of stress and the familiar identity of your past. When you decide to cross the river and leave that old self behind, your body begins to send signals to your brain to try and get you to return to what is comfortable. It starts to whisper to you. It tells you that you can start tomorrow, that this doesn't feel right, you are not good enough, or that it's too hard. Those thoughts are not truth. They are the biological screams of an old self that is dying. If you listen to those thoughts and act on them, you return to the same familiar state of being. You will continue to attract the same life because you are being the same person. Crossing the river of change means you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort of the unknown. You have to be willing to lose your appetite for the familiar and become more interested in the possibilities of the future than the comforts of the past. The unknown is the only place where creation can happen. If you are living in the known, you are living the predictable past. You cannot create a new future from the same platform of the old self. This requires a level of awareness that most people never achieve. It requires you to observe your thoughts as if you are someone else looking in. You have to become so conscious of your unconscious behaviors that you would never let a single thought pass your awareness that you would not want to experience in your reality. You have to realize that when you feel that familiar pang of anxiety or that habitual urge to judge, you are at a crossroads. You can either feed the old self and strengthen its hold on your life, or you can choose to remain in the void space of no thing until you can begin to install the new thoughts and feelings of your future self. This is where the work is. It's not in the big grand gestures. It's in the quiet moments of the morning when you choose to be someone different despite what your body is telling you. Most people reach the middle of the river, feel the cold water of the unknown, turn back as they prefer the familiarity of their suffering over the uncertainty of their greatness. But if you can stay in that river, if you can stay in that gap between your old life and your new life, you begin to break the habit of being yourself. You start to prune away the neurological connections that kept you bound to your limitations. You begin to signal new genes in new ways. You are essentially dismantling the old hardware of your brain and making room for a new operating system. It is a profound act of self-love and will. It is the process of shedding the skin of the person you thought you were to reveal the creator you were meant to be. As you persist, the discomfort begins to fade and is replaced by a sense of liberation. You realize that you are no longer defined by the memories of your past, but by the vision of your future. You are no longer attracting your life through the lens of your old identity. You are beginning to vibrate at a frequency that is congruent with your highest potential. This is the bridge to a new dimension of existence, where you stop being a victim of your biology and start being the architect of your destiny. You're moving from a state of being somebody to being nobody, and in that space of nothingness, you have the power to become everything. This is the transition from the old self to the new self, a journey that requires you to behind everything you know, to find everything you've ever wanted. Most profound challenges we face as human beings is the conditioning that tells us we must see something in our outer world before we are allowed to feel it in our inner world. We'd have been programmed by a 3 reality to believe in a linear model of cause and effect, where we wait for the wealth to feel abundant, we wait for the success to feel empowered, or we wait for the healing to feel whole. Weight of living is a trap because it keeps us in a state of constant waiting and dependence on the environment. If you are waiting for a change in your physical reality to change how you feel, then you are a victim to your circumstances. You are essentially saying that your inner state of being is at the mercy of things outside of you. To truly attract what you are, you must flip the script entirely. You must learn the art of feeling the emotion of your future before the event has actually occurred. This is not just a psychological trick, it is a biological and quantum necessity. When you begin to understand the language of the nervous system, you realize that the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between an experience that is happening in your external environment and an emotion you are creating through thought and imagination alone. When you sit in the stillness of your own mind and you begin to cultivate a state of elevated emotion, whether that is gratitude, joy, inspiration, or love, you are literally signaling your genes and changing your chemistry. If you can maintain that emotional state for a long enough period, your body begins to believe it is already in that future reality. It begins to prepare the physical structures and the chemical pathways as if the event has already happened. This is how you move from being a victim of your life to being the creator of your life. You are no longer waiting for the world to give you a reason to be happy. You are teaching your body how to be happy first. Happiness becomes the signal that draws the event to you. Gratitude is perhaps the most powerful state of being you can inhabit in this process. In the traditional sense, we only say thank you when we have received something. Therefore, the emotional signature of gratitude is that the event has already happened. When you can move into a state of true, heartfelt gratitude for a life that hasn't manifested yet, you are sending a clear signal to the quantum field that you have already received your wish. You are essentially bypassing the limitations of time and space. You are no longer looking at the horizon wondering when your dream will arrive. You are living in the frequency of the dream itself. This requires a radical departure from the way we were raised to think. It requires you to trust your internal world more than your external world. It requires you to stay in that elevated state, even when your five senses tell you that nothing has changed yet. The moment you look for the result and feel frustration that it isn't there, you have returned to the old self, have stopped the attraction process because you have returned to the signature of lack. To feel the emotion before the event means you are no longer separate from your desire. In the quantum field, possible version of your life already exists as a frequency, a wave of probability. There is a version of you that is healthy, a version of you that is prosperous, and a version of you that is deeply fulfilled. Versions of you aren't located in a distant future. They exist right now as a potential. To connect with one of those potentials, you must match its frequency. You cannot experience a reality of abundance if you are vibrating at the frequency of scarcity. You cannot find love if you are vibrating at the frequency of feeling unlovable. You must become the thing you want to experience. When you close your eyes and mentally rehearse your future, and you marry that vision with an intense feeling of joy or triumph, you are literally pulling that future toward you. You are shortening the distance between your current state and your destination. The process of emotional rehearsal changes your brain and body so fundamentally that you actually look like the person who has already achieved the goal. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, and perceive the world through a new set of filters. You are no longer reacting to the old world. You are responding to the new one you are building inside of you. People may look at you and ask why you are so happy or why you seem so at peace when your external circumstances haven't changed yet. Your answer, you might keep it to yourself, is that you are no longer living in this world. You are living in the future you have created. This is the ultimate form of empowerment. The realization that your internal environment is more real and more powerful than anything happening outside of you. By the time the event actually manifests in your physical reality, already experienced it 1,000 times in your mind and heart, so much so that the actual arrival of the event feels like the most natural thing in the world. It won't even surprise you because you have already become the person who deserves it, moved from wanting to being. And in that state of being, you are an unstoppable force of nature. To truly understand why we struggle to change our lives, we have to confront the uncomfortable reality that most of us are essentially a set of walking, talking programs. By the time we reach the midpoint of our lives, nearly 95% of who we are is a localized set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, and hardwired attitudes that function just like a computer program. We wake up and we think the same thoughts, and those thoughts lead to the same choices, and those choices lead to the same behaviors. And those behaviors create the same experiences, which ultimately produce the same emotions. This cycle becomes our personality. Our personality creates our personal reality. Therefore, if you want to create a new personal reality, you have to do something that is fundamentally difficult for the human ego. You have to break the habit of being yourself. You have to be willing to lose your mind and create a new one. This process starts with becoming an observer of your own life. Most people are so deeply immersed in their own narrative that they cannot see the patterns that are keeping them imprisoned. To break the habit of being yourself, you must first become so conscious of your unconscious self that you would not let a single thought, action, or emotion pass by your awareness unnoticed. You have to ask yourself, what are the thoughts I have been thinking that are keeping me small? What are the words I use every day that reinforce my limitations? What are the emotions that I am so used to feeling that I have mistaken them for my identity? Many people realize that they have been practicing guilt or unworthiness for so long that they actually feel uncomfortable when they are happy. They have become addicted to their own suffering because it is familiar. Breaking the habit means you have to stop feeding that addiction. You have to decide that you are no longer going to be that person, even if it means you don't know who you are for a while. When you begin this work, enter a state where you are no longer defined by your physical environment, your body, or time. In the quantum field, this is the state of being no body, no one, no thing, in no place, and in no time. This is the door to the quantum field. Long as you are identified as somebody, as a mother, a father, an employee, a person with a specific past and a specific set of problems, you are bound to the laws of the three-dimensional world. But when you can take your attention off your body, off the people in your life, off your cell phone, and off the clock, you become pure consciousness. In that state of pure awareness, you are no longer a slave to your old habits. You are in the place where all possibilities exist. From this space of nothingness, that you can begin to reinvent yourself. You have to become so focused on the act of creation that you lose track of yourself. When you are truly in the flow of creation, the old no longer exists. The act of unlearning is just as important as the act of learning. You have to prune away the synaptic connections in your brain that have been firing and wiring together for decades. Every time you catch yourself in an old thought, I can't do this, or it's too hard, and you consciously stop and redirect that energy, you are breaking the habit. You are telling your brain that the old program is no longer valid. You are essentially taking back the power from your subconscious mind and putting it back in the hands of your conscious intent. This is not something that happens once. It is a moment practice of self-correction. Requires a level of vigilance that most people are unwilling to maintain, but it is the only way to ensure that you are no longer attracting your life from the platform of your past. You must realize that your old self is like a garment that you have outgrown. You keep wearing it because you are afraid of being naked in the unknown. Breaking the habit of being yourself is about having the courage to take off that old garment and sit in the emptiness until the new version of you begins to take shape. About moving from the predictable to the unpredictable. Most people find the unpredictable terrifying, so they run back to their familiar misery because at least they know what to expect. But if you can stay in that space of change, you begin to dismantle the neurological architecture of your old life. You begin to clear the canvas so that you can paint a new future. You are no longer a victim of your genetics or your past experiences. You are a biological work in progress. Have the tools to rewrite your own code. When you finally break the habit of being the person who expects the worst, or the person who feels invisible, or the person who lives in lack, you find that the universe begins to respond to you in ways you never thought possible. You are no longer attracting from a place of wanting. To change, you are attracting from the new state of having already changed. This is the transformation of the self. Movement from an old man to the new man, where the personality no longer dictates the reality, but the consciousness dictates the personality. To understand how we truly change our lives, we have to look at the brain not as a static organ, as an incredibly plastic and dynamic interface that is constantly being reshaped by our attention. For most of us, the brain is a map of the past. It is a vast, interconnected archive of everything we have learned and experienced up to this point. Every person we have met, every place we have been, and every event we have lived through is etched into the neural architecture of our minds. This means that if you wake up every morning and let your senses dictate your thoughts, if you see the same bed, the same spouse, the same bathroom mirror, and the same coffee maker, your brain is automatically firing the same sequences that it did yesterday. You are literally thinking within the box of your past. If you believe that your thoughts have something to do with your destiny and you are only thinking in terms of what you already know, then you are creating a future that looks exactly like your past. To break this cycle, you have to begin to use your brain as a blueprint for the future rather than a record of what has already happened. This is where the power of mental rehearsal becomes the most important tool in your arsenal. Science of neuroplasticity tells us that the brain does not know the difference between an actual physical experience and an experience you imagine with high intensity and emotional clarity. When you close your eyes and you begin to mentally rehearse an action or a way of being, when you see yourself being courageous or being abundant or being healed, you are beginning to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look as if the event has already occurred. You are essentially priming your nervous system. If you do this repeatedly, with enough focus and enough passion, neural networks begin to fire and wire together in new ways. You are literally changing the physical structure of your brain. You are moving from a state of learning about a new life to a state of becoming that new life. Time you open your eyes and step out into your world, your brain is no longer a record of where you have been. It is a map of where you are going. Most people wait for a physical reality to change before they allow their brain to perceive something new. The bank account to grow before they think like a wealthy person, or they want the body to be fit before they think like an athlete. The true creator understands that you must install the hardware first. You have to become the person who is capable of handling the wealth, the health, or the love before it ever shows up. When you spend time every day mentally rehearsing your future, you are making your brain work in new sequences. You are breaking the old patterns of thought that have kept you stuck in the same personality. You are essentially telling your brain, this is who I am now. The beauty of this process is that once the hardware is installed, the software, the behaviors, and the choices follows naturally. You don't have to struggle to be confident if you have already wired your brain for confidence. You don't have to force yourself to be grateful if you have practiced the neurochemistry of gratitude every morning in your mind. This is the transition from living in the known to living in the hunk known. When you use your brain as a blueprint, you are no longer limited by your environment. You can be in a prison cell and still wire your brain for freedom. You can be in a hospital bed and still wire your brain for vitality. You are asserting your dominance over your physical reality by using the power of your mind to define your state of being. The more you practice this, the more the brain begins to believe that this new reality is the truth, begins to filter the world through this new lens. Suddenly, you start noticing opportunities that were always there, but were invisible to your old brain. You begin to have insights and how moments that never would have come to you when you were stuck in the old map. This is because you have changed the frequency of your perception. You are no longer looking for ways to survive. You are looking for ways to thrive. Power of the blueprint lies in its consistency. You cannot build a new house by looking at the blueprints for 10 minutes and then spending the rest of the day looking at the old, broken down shack you currently live in. You have to keep the blueprint of the new house in the forefront of your mind. You have to become so familiar with the details of your future, how you will speak, how you will act, how you will feel, that it becomes more real to you than the room you are sitting in. When your internal world becomes more real than your external world, you have reached the tipping point. You have successfully remapped your brain. You are no longer attracting your life from the old records of trauma, failure, or lack. You are attracting your life from the new, vibrant blueprint of your potential. Have become the architect of your own evolution, and your brain is now a sophisticated instrument designed to lead you directly into the manifestation of your greatest dreams. You are no longer a victim of your history. You are the master of your destiny. And it all starts with the courage to think greater than how you feel, to step into the true power of creation, address the fundamental relationship between the heart and the brain, a state of alignment we call coherence. Most people live their lives in a state of high beta brainwave activity, which is the signature of the survival mode. In this state, the brain is scanning the environment for threats. And because we are in a state of emergency, our thoughts become fragmented, scattered, and incoherent. At the same time, if we are living in stress, our heart rhythm becomes jagged and irregular. When the brain is incoherent and the heart is out of rhythm, we are like an orchestra where every musician is playing a different song at a different tempo. This internal noise creates a massive amount of interference in our personal energy field. We are essentially canceling out our own signals. We try to think positive thoughts, but our body is sending a message of panic. And the result is that we attract nothing but more chaos and frustration. To attract what we are, we must first become coherent. Heart is the center of our magnetic field. It is the engine that drives the energy of our being. Research shows that when we focus our attention on the center of our chest and begin to breathe slowly and deeply, we can start to shift our heart rhythm from a state of chaos to a state of order. When you combine that rhythmic breathing with elevated emotions like appreciation, care, or compassion, the heart begins to beat in a coherent, consistent pattern. This isn't just a nice feeling, it is a measurable physiological change. A coherent heart sends a signal to the brain that the environment is safe, which allows the brain to move out of survival mode and into the creative alpha and theta states. When the heart and brain are in sync, you are no longer a house divided against itself. You are operating as a unified system. This is the state of being where you are no longer trying to get something from the field. You are becoming a radiant source that the field responds to. When you are in a state of coherence, your electromagnetic signature becomes incredibly powerful and orderly. Imagine throwing a handful of pebbles into a still pond. The ripples interfere with each other and create a messy surface. That is an incoherent state. But imagine a single large stone dropped with intention. It creates wide, rhythmic, powerful circles that move all the way to the shore. That is coherence. When you hold a clear intention in your mind, the electrical charge, and you marry it with the elevated emotion of a coherent heart, the magnetic charge, you create a vertical alignment of energy. This alignment acts like a beacon. You are no longer chasing your life. You are broadcasting a frequency that the quantum field must, by law, match. This is why people in this state often report that the world seems to open up for them. They meet the right person at the right time, receive an unexpected phone call, or they find themselves in the right place for a miraculous opportunity. These are not accidents. They are the result of heart-mind coherence. The beauty of this state is that it allows you to step out of the trying and into the being. In the old Newtonian model of reality, we believe we have to go out and work for everything we want. We think we have to manipulate matter with matter. In the quantum model, we realize that if we change our energy, the matter will follow. If you are coherent, you are no longer operating from a place of desperation. Desperation is an incoherent signal. It says, have it, and therefore the field gives you the experience of not having it. Coherence says, I am it. And the field reflects that wholeness back to you. This requires us to practice the state of the heart even when things are not going our way. Easy to be coherent when everything is perfect, but the real mastery is staying in that heart-centered space when the world is in turmoil. That is when you prove to yourself that you are the master of your internal environment. As you sustain this coherence, begin to heal your own biology. Your immune system strengthens, your stress hormones drop, and your body begins to repair itself because it is finally out of the emergency state and back in the growth state. Is the physiological foundation for attracting a new life. You cannot attract a vibrant, healthy, abundant future if your body is trapped in the chemistry of the past. You must bring the heart and the brain into a state of resonance. When you do this, you become a different frequency of human being. You start to feel a sense of wholeness that is independent of your external circumstances. This wholeness is the ultimate secret to attraction. When you feel whole, you are no longer in want. And when you are no longer in want, you have finally matched the frequency of everything you have ever desired. You are now a walking, breathing transmitter of the future you have chosen. Universe has no choice but to deliver the physical manifestation of that energy. The final and perhaps most vital piece of this transformation is the commitment to a sustained, unshakable awareness that transcends the time you spend in quiet contemplation. A common mistake to believe that you can spend 20 minutes in the morning visualizing a new life, only to spend the remaining 16 hours of your day returning to the same old personality, reacting to the same old triggers, complaining about the same old circumstances. If you do this, you are effectively canceling out your work. To truly attract what you are, you must maintain the state of your new being throughout the entirety of your day, regardless of what is happening in your environment. This requires a level of self-observation that is relentless. You have to become a guardian at the gate of your own mind. Realize that the moment you lose your awareness and slip back into a habitual reaction, you have moved out of the future and back in the past. Sustained awareness means that you are no longer letting your environment dictate how you feel. People, environmentalists, in the sense that they allow everything outside of them, the traffic, the weather, their boss, or the news, to control their internal state. If things go well, they feel good. If things go poorly, they feel bad. This is a state of victimhood because it means you are at the mercy of the world. To be a creator, your internal state must be greater than your external environment. You have to be able to maintain your joy, your gratitude, sense of abundance, even when your bank account is low or someone is being unkind to you. This is the ultimate test of your transformation. Can you stay in the frequency of your future when the world is showing you the evidence of your past? If you can, you are demonstrating a mastery over matter that the quantum field cannot ignore. You are proving that your vision of the future is more real to you than the present reality. This process is about catching yourself in the act of being the old self. It's about that moment in the middle of the afternoon when you feel a surge of frustration or a wave of self-doubt. In that moment, you have a choice. You can either follow that emotion down the rabbit hole of your old identity, or you can pause, take a breath, consciously choose to return to the heart. You have to say to yourself, this emotion is not who I am. It is just a chemical habit from my past. By refusing to feed the emotion, you are starving the old neural networks and strengthening the new ones. You are practicing the art of staying conscious in a world that is designed to make you unconscious. This constant redirection is how the new personality becomes permanent. Eventually, it takes less effort to be the new you than it does to be the old you. You reach a point of critical mass, where the new state of being becomes your default setting. You must also understand that the universe will often test your new state of being. Shortly after you decide to change, life will often present you with a situation that perfectly mirrors your old patterns. It's as if the quantum field is asking, are you really serious about being this new person? If you react the same way you always have, you have lost your alignment. If you can meet that challenge with your new perspective, if you can respond with grace instead of anger or with trust instead of fear, then you have successfully navigated a pivot point in your evolution. You are no longer just thinking about change, you are living it. This is where the true power of attraction lies. When you are consistent in your energy, the field begins to respond with a consistency of its own. You begin to see that the world is not something happening to you, something happening through you. The power of sustained awareness is that it collapses the distance between you and your dreams. When you live every moment from the state of the wish fulfilled, you are essentially walking through your life as the person you once only dreamed of being. You stop searching for signs because you have become the sign. You stop asking when it will happen because you are already experiencing the reality of it within yourself. Level of presence is what allows the extraordinary to become ordinary. You begin to live in a state of constant wonder and curiosity, looking for how the universe will surprise you next. You are no longer trying to predict the future based on the past. You are allowing the future to unfold in ways that are far greater than anything your limited ego could have planned. You have moved from a life of effort and struggle to a life of grace and flow. This is the ultimate realization. You are not a separate entity trying to get something from the universe, but an extension of the universe itself, expressing its creative power through the medium of your own consciousness. When you stay awake to this truth, you don't just change your life, you become the change, and in doing so, you attract a reality that is as magnificent and boundless as the energy you are broadcasting. You are the architect of your own reality. If you want a new outcome, you must become a new person. Stop waiting for the world to change. Change your internal state, and the world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match who you have become.